to the right, caught over the middle, and into.
He's at the 45. Gets a block. Are you kidding? Oh, he's gonna go.
Already gets hit. The ball is out. And Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you check us out at DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button, and while you're on the page, make sure you check out the link tree in our bio to take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout tonight's show with myself and Scotty, don't forget the best place to get your thoughts, comments, and concerns pulled up is the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, whatever you got to do. We greatly appreciate it, and the shows are always more fun when you guys interact with us. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. You can find him as well at Scotty Drown. Happy Thursday. On today's show, we are going to be recapping the Saints-Bucks Monday Night Football matchup, give our updated Week 14 power rankings. Week 14, man, this season is just flying by at this point. And then we're also going to get in to what kicks off Week 14, which is the Rams Raiders. Scotty's got an interesting little point to bring up later on in the show that I didn't think was possible maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So today should be a fun show, but first and foremost, what's going on?
Hey, man, not much. Happy Thursday to you. Get the football week started. I'm always happy to get back to Thursday.
Thursday's a good day. It's an underrated day.
It is. You know, Fridays are usually pretty laid back from a work perspective. Even if you work on Fridays, it's usually one of the more chill days. And you know, Thursday night football just gets you prepped for the weekend. You know, the next wave of sports coming. I took a break last night. There was a ton of NBA action.
Me too.
I did my best bets for my show yesterday. That was it. I just did 2 plays and kind of let it ride. And so it was nice to not stress too much last night and not worry too much about scores. But we get back to it
a little earlier. I wasn't scrolling at
the
things on my phone at midnight.
We get the World Cup to start our Friday tomorrow too, so that's kind of nice. And then we get back into Sixers and then on into the weekend. Yep. But happy to have the NFL back nonetheless. It's probably the most joyous football or sports team that I have right now. Obviously, the Phillies are on fire this off season, but
we got about three or 4 more months of Philly-less meaningful baseball. So
exactly.
In the meantime, we'll have to focus on the team here at the Lincoln Financial Field. But with that being said, man, Monday night, a game that sneakily had more implications than I guess met the eye for me. Like, I guess I'm just so laid back heading into that matchup where the Bucks aren't losing the NFC South. Brady will be fine. And you watch 58 minutes of that or 50 minutes of that 60-minute game, and you sit here and say, wow, this team stinks. This team has no energy. This team has no fight. They're boring on offense. They get beat up a little bit on defense in certain areas. And then all of a sudden, a switch gets flipped. And not even because of the Bucks. Obviously, there's people having a field day with Mark Ingram. I know he's injured now, but running out of bounds with 6-7 minutes left. They're up 16-3. Runs out of bounds a yard shy of the first down. Then they throw it, incompletion. They have to punt. Then they punt from in Bucks territory. Like, very weird dynamic to bring the GOAT back into play.
Especially from New Orleans' perspective, right? A team that's not playing that you have to win this game, right? This is going to make or break their season.
Or even like when you see at this point in the season, you're starting to get into territory where these teams who aren't playing for much, unless they're in utter tank mode, like let's say the Texans, maybe they have one win, they're not trying to win football games.
Yeah.
A 4 or 5 win team, you get into these later weeks, they'll go for 2 instead of kicking the tying extra point, like just to see if they can win or not. So if you're the Saints, you're up 16-3 on the road late in the fourth quarter. Not to mention, you use Taysom Hill and all these weird packages. You never thought to try to just give him the ball 2 or 3 times in a row when you need 1 yard. You know what I mean? Just weird stuff all around. You throw it on third down with Andy Dalton. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But ultimately, Scotty, I guess my question to you isn't how the Saints fumbled this game away, even though it plays a factor.
Yeah.
It's how Tom and this offense looked down the stretch, and what he was able to accomplish, because it has to be looked at least in somewhat of a positive light as we head into Week 14 here, because it's a spark you really haven't seen this team have in quite some time. And I guess I'm sitting here wondering now, what am I going to see Sunday? Is this team going to be revitalized? Are they going to be juiced after that win? But then again, the Achilles heel, 54 pass attempts. Now, I know you were trailing a lot in this game and you had to throw the ball all fourth quarter, basically, but this team doesn't stay out of their own way. So how do you feel about the Buccaneers right now?
You know, I guess the best way to put it is I'm in between on the Buccaneers right now, because there's one side of things where Tom Brady may have just activated something right there.
Yes.
Those last few drives, right? Because that looked like classic Tom Brady. Like, that's Tom Brady. You give him the ball in the last couple minutes, couple seconds.
One gets called back for offensive holding, and he still does it again.
Still gets it done, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that, and there's a side here where that was their breakthrough this season. Maybe now they can play like up to where their expectations were to start the season. The other side of that is a 4-9 now Saints team,
led
that
by
they
Andy
just
Dalton.
really struggled against on Monday Night Football on the big stage at home. So there is that side of it. But what I will say, I would lean more towards Tom Brady kind of receiving that spark plug, feeling revived. I would lean more towards that path than I would lean towards that just being like just kind of a fluke. Yeah. I think they may have found something there with those last couple drives. Now, obviously, you come out of this game against the New Orleans Saints. That's a tough defense. It's not going to lay off any this upcoming week against the San Francisco 49ers. It's only going to get tougher. Man. But I will say they caught a break, right? Brock Purdy, he played well on Sunday against Miami. I think that's a little bit of shock factor. Jimmy G gone. You don't plan for Brock Purdy. So I think they'll have some time to get stuff together for him. I think they get lucky getting that matchup with San Fran. And early call here, man. I feel so strongly about it, honestly. I would put San Fran on upset alert here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady is super excited to go out there to San Francisco and play in front of his family and friends. Said it's like the first time in a while that his parents actually didn't have to travel to come see him play. So he's like super joyous right now. And I think he may have found a little bit of joy at the end of that game.
Got a new supermodel girlfriend, apparently.
He's been going through some stuff this season, right? And it showed through his play and his frustrations on the field. And maybe, just maybe, we're turning the corner here with the Bucs, and they could pick up the pace. This is a perfect opportunity to show that you are back on track, right? Against the San Francisco 49ers team, but with Brock Purdy. Yeah. If it wasn't Brock Purdy, I wouldn't be so confident in an upset. Just putting San Fran on an upset alert.
Yeah, you look at that defense, and not to take anything away from the Saints defense, because it's a damn good unit, but the Niners, we know they're on another level. They're probably the best defense in the league. I watch how absent and how boring and simple this Bucs offense was through 3.5 quarters. Scotty, at home, not in New Orleans on Monday night, at home, Andy Dalton prime time. And you were getting your ass handed to you until there were 6 minutes left and the Saints gave you the ball back.
Yeah.
But I do side with you on this one. But only time will be able to tell. There's no confidence out of me where I can pinpoint and say that the Bucs and Tom Brady are back.
Would I put my money on that? Probably not. No. I would just put the 49ers on upset alert. That's what I would.
I think the thing that bothers me, we talk a lot about different teams and perceptions and national media talk. You know, I was on my morning jog this morning, Phil. Don't worry. We talk about all the time how the teams bother me. The Bills find a way to bother me. The Cowboys bother me. The fan base bothers me. All that stuff, right? It bothers me as an Eagles fan. Same thing like the Vikings. Like, we're 11-1 and we're not even running away with the 1 seed.
Right.
The Bucs bother me this year because we might run away with the 1 seed. And yes, they might look really bad right now. But if I get a divisional round, people got to come through the link. And guess what? My first game, I got to play against Tom. I'm not too excited. I'm not scared like I would be in the past. But that's not my ideal first matchup. So they're annoying. Like, I need Tampa Bay to either figure it out or not, because I don't want this big unknown, this big, underdog story. The Bucks finish 8-9, but they win their division, and then Tom comes in here and throws for 350, right? Like,
man,
that's way in the future. I'm just saying,
you're setting it up though. Goodness,
things from them, man.
Tom Brady, the Eagles Slayer, coming into the link. Oh, hell.
I'm just saying, man. I don't know.
I hear you, man. It's not that is not ideal. I would say what we would see. So right now, Seattle, New York, Dallas, Tampa's the 4 seed.
Right, we'd have the
bye. They would actually play. They would play Dallas, right?
Would they?
So Minnesota would play Seattle in Minnesota.
2 versus 7, 3 versus 6.
San Fran would play New York Giants, and then Tampa Bay would play Dallas in Tampa Bay. So
Tampa might get bounced in the first round. Although
they beat them at the beginning of the season. I mean, Tampa, they beat them the last 2 seasons, so they kind of have their number, I guess you could say. But I would probably pick the Cowboys in that matchup, even on the road. And I mean, depending what happens in the other 2 games, it could be the Cowboys that come there first. Down the road.
Oh yeah.
We're really super close to the playoffs. So it's actually amazing.
It's pretty wild. We're over a week now into December, and once you get around this time, you got what, a month left of regular season football. That's it, and then we're right into the postseason. So it's not too out of line to start looking that way, especially when you're an 11-1 team. With that being said, speaking of 11-1 team, let's get into our updated power rankings heading into week 14. If you're ready, this week's going to be interesting, man. I think you brought it up right here. Power rankings should be fun this week because there's been a lot of movement. You had a lot of close finishes, a lot of playoff implicated games this past week. And obviously one side only came out a winner unless you're the Giants and Washington Commanders. But I'm interested to see. Let's do this. Let's go 10 down to 6, and then we'll pick back up for 5 down to 1. So who do you have at number 10 for your power rankings?
Number 10 was actually really hard. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
There's about 4 teams I had in mind. None of them really, were just banging on the door for me to put them on there. But I went with the New York Jets ultimately.
Okay.
I'm looking at the Jets right now. They're 7-5. They lost to Minnesota, right? In Minnesota, 27-22. But what it showed me is that they at least can play competently against a solid defense in Minnesota, right? And Mike White, once again, wasn't a super detractor like Zach Wilson, right? So he plays at least a little bit of competent football there. And once again, the defense, even though they gave up 27 points, that is the Minnesota Vikings. That is Justin Jefferson you're going against, that you're game planning against. Dalvin
in Minnesota
Cook,
as well.
Ton of talent, right? And so I thought that was a good effort by the New York Jets. Now they get the Buffalo Bills this week. It's not going to get any easier going on the road to play them, but I like where they're at right now. And I think if nothing else, the Jets, man, I'm almost becoming sold that they are a quarterback away. I'm almost becoming sold that they're a quarterback away. Their defense is really good, obviously. They have the shutdown corner that they're breeding. He might be he's got to be a top 5 corner. I would have to look into it, obviously. Got to be top 5 corner in the NFL right now when we're talking about Sauce Gardner. And then you look on offense, Breece Hall. You have James Robinson. You have Michael Carter. So, and even this Zonovan Knight that's kind of came out of nowhere. He's playing well for him as well. And then the 2 young receivers that you have there. They got some nice talent. I'm starting to believe. So got them at number 10. That was really hard for me to put them over the likes of Seattle, Washington. Those are some other teams I was thinking about there. Number 9, I went with the Baltimore Ravens. They're 8-4 right now. They were able to beat the Denver Broncos 10-9 over the weekend. They're falling, man. I'll kind of just put it that way. Obviously, the Lamar Jackson injury does not help at all, right? But they weren't really putting anything out there in the first place with Lamar. So they weren't selling me at that point anyways. Baltimore Ravens at number 9 for me. Number 8, this was actually my first kind of big fall, and it is the Miami Dolphins at 8-4. They lost to San Fran 33-17. While I don't think the loss was, a terrible loss, I do think the loss said a little bit about what the Dolphins' weaknesses might be. So that's why they ultimately had the fall. They actually fell from 3 to 8 for me.
It's a big drop.
It is a big drop. It is a big drop. It showed me a lot, man. It showed me 1, 2, it is human being, right? He can have bad games. They do have some weaknesses with their offensive line. It is San Fran at the same time. But, ultimately dealing with the Jalen Waddle injury. We'll see what Miami's got this week and bounce back opportunity against the Chargers. Number 7, I got the San Francisco 49ers. They actually did drop one spot just because of the quarterback situation. We'll see what Brock Purdy can do, if he can really keep that team afloat. Good opportunity for them as well this weekend, obviously against Tampa Bay. A decent defense for him to go up against. So I'm looking at them, see if that defense is really that good to just keep them right there within the contenders in the NFC. And then finally at number 6, I have the Cincinnati Bengals at 8-4. They were able to beat the Chiefs, who were my number 1 team. They've won 4 in a row. And I'm just really impressed with what they're putting together. They're finally starting to pick up some steam here and look like what they were looking like down the stretch last season.
I like it, man. There's not much I can really disagree with. We only have one team different. So at number 10, I have the Seattle Seahawks, one of the teams you had on the fringe. In terms of how I view them, in terms of if I think they're a playoff threat, no, they're not. But I think that group from 10 to 14, however many teams you want to lump together, I don't find any of them real, right? Yeah. So at number 10, I can only go so long by discrediting Geno Smith.
Yeah,
he's slinging it. DK Metcalf has had a resurgence this year. Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker's a stud, and they just continue to they're winning, man. They're 7-5. The Giants I had in this conversation, the Seahawks beat the Giants straight up. The Commanders just tied the Giants. So those two teams aren't going to leapfrog the Seahawks. And then I'll jump up to my number 9 and I'll preface it by saying, you mentioned the Ravens are falling. They're free falling for me. Yeah. I know they're 8-4. Maybe this is an overreaction, but you want to take into account Lamar's PCL injury, going to be out for possibly 2+ weeks. They weren't doing anything offensively before. Their defense gives up big plays, can't stop the run 1 week. They're still winning games, but 10-9 over the Bucks. Over the Broncos, or 12-9, however that game ended. Come on, man. Like, you can miss me with that. So they're free falling. So at number 9, I have the New York Jets, Scotty. I do agree with you for the fact that they seem to be a quarterback away. Now, do we want to say quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl? No. I think the roster's too young for that, but a quarterback away from being in the conversation. I would never, even if they had depending on the quarterback, but if they had a serviceable quarterback, I wouldn't put them above the likes of Mahomes and Allen and Burrow in the AFC, but they'd at least be in the conversation, right? To me, they're better than Baltimore. And I think that's a problem, especially if you're the Ravens. So at the Jets, I have number 9. They continue. Obviously, they're coming off a loss to Minnesota on the road. Had a chance, man. Mike White couldn't make a play. They had they had second and goal from the 1. Couldn't punch it in. They almost beat the Vikings on the road and helped out the Eagles last week. So that was pretty impressive for me, even though it was an L. Same. At number 8, I had the San Francisco 49ers. Now, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. And they won in convincing fashion. I don't mean harsh that way. I mean harsh in grading what in my prediction for life without Jimmy Garoppolo. Here's how I view them, Scotty. You know how I feel about their defense. You know how I feel about their skill position players, the trade for McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, all that stuff. The question the whole time, even with the whole team healthy, was quarterback, and that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. How is Jimmy Garoppolo going to stop them from advancing in the playoffs? Now you take him away, and you're telling me you have a future with Brock Purdy? These offensive linemen, these coaches, they can talk them up all they want all week long. You would think he played in the league for 15. Stop it. Maybe he proves me wrong. maybe I'm an ass and they surprise me. But I'm projecting here with the Niners, I think, and I have them at 8 for the reason I think they suffer from Garoppolo, but I think the rest of the team is still that good to keep them in line right there.
Yeah.
At number 7, this team could be higher as well. I'm just looking at what's above them right now. At number 7, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, just beat the Jets, just beat that defense. Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins has played pretty well this year. Second best record in the entire National Football League. So definitely see the argument for them being higher. Again, this is kind of a projection for me as we get later on into the season. How do I view Minnesota? I know they're good. Do I view them better than any of the teams I have ahead of them? One-on-one playoffs? I don't. And the team I do have slotted ahead of them, number 6, is the Miami Dolphins. Now, if Jimmy Garoppolo didn't get hurt, Scotty,
yeah,
those two teams would be flip-flopped.
Yeah.
But now with that injury coming off that loss, I still project Tua and the Dolphins to bounce back. I know how talented they are, so I'll keep them at 6 for now. They drop from 3 to 6 for me as well. So Seahawks, Jets, Niners, Vikings, Dolphins, and I'll throw this one thing to you before we get to your top 5. Remember how many weeks we were, man, this top 10 just doesn't really feel like a top 10. It's getting a little crowded now, right? Like, I still think you have the Eagles and the Chiefs at the top, but it's getting a little more crowded. The Bengals are in the conversation. Dallas is in the conversation. The Bills are playing. Like, it's tougher now to decipher the top 10 than it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you there. There's a lot of 8-4 teams. You have a couple 9-3 teams, 1 10-2 team, and then an 11-1 team, and then you have quite a few 7-5 and then 7-5-1 type of teams out there. So yeah, it's getting crowded, man. But I will say, the top 5 really hasn't varied much, right? Like, it hasn't. So these teams in the top 5 haven't dropped out of the top 10 once, right?
No, out of the top 10 for sure.
Yeah, so it hasn't varied too much from the top 5 perspective. But I will say that top 5 has kind of leaked out into a top 7, top 8, right? In that
top
category.
8, I would say, arguably.
Yeah. So if you still count San Fran, you would say top 8.
Which I will for the time being. I just think they take a pretty big hit for the quarterback loss.
Absolutely. So coming in at number 5, it's a team that you mentioned already, Minnesota Vikings. I was about to say the Timberwolves there. I'm in NBA mode. The Minnesota Vikings, man, they were actually 7th last week, so they moved up a little bit for me just by default. Some of these other teams losing or receiving injuries, such as the 49ers. Minnesota Vikings, they just kind of keep on strolling, right? They keep on chugging, keep on getting wins. No matter how hard they might be, they do get the wins most of the time this season, 10-2. And I'm just looking for them to kind of pace themselves. I would like to see a loss one of these weeks just to kind of help us out. And I think this week they'll have another tough matchup, man. I'm actually liking what I'm seeing from the Detroit Lions. But it'll be another good test for the Minnesota Vikings. What were you going to say?
We can talk about this on Sunday, obviously, but Detroit opened up as favorites.
Whoa, I did not know that.
I don't know. It was 1 point. But Detroit opened up as favorites against Minnesota when the lines came out.
I did not know that. That is interesting. Detroit's won 3 in a row.
They've won 4 of 5.
4 of 5. Yeah, they did drop one somewhere in there. So I don't know. The Minnesota Vikings, I can't hate on them too much. I'm like you. I'm not super high on the Vikings. I'm really not. I don't look at them as you talk about a top 3 team that I think could match up with the Eagles from an Eagles fan perspective of the Eagles being the number 1 seed in the entire NFL. I look at 3 other teams or more as tougher challenges than the Minnesota Vikings, in my opinion. But nonetheless, they are number 5 out of respect for what they are putting together. It's a good season nonetheless. Number 4, I have the Buffalo Bills. They were previously number 5. They move up. They've been playing some better football, quite honestly. The last 3 weeks, they've put together a 3-game winning streak. They were able to take care of the New England Patriots 24-10. I think that's a pretty convincing win to separate them. They did it in a different fashion in a sense, right? They're starting to run the football, which I think is a good, strong suit. I don't like it from a perspective of watching them play. I like to see Josh Allen airing it out to Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and such. But from a perspective of trying to win and preserve your quarterback in the best way to win, I think they're using that within their running game, and that's a good idea for them going forward with that tough defense, right? Number 3, I got the Dallas Cowboys, 9-3 on the season. They were number 4 last week. They move up just one. But that I can't help. I hate to say it, right? I'm impressed by what the Cowboys are able to do. Their defense is really tough. I'm not going to go away from that. And we'll see what Dak Prescott, continues to do. He did have the interception in that game that kind of kept it close, right? In the first parts of the game, they come out in the fourth quarter and score 33 points to kind of make that look like something it wasn't for most of the game. But nonetheless, it's impressive, right?
Yeah.
That they're able to do that. And the Cowboys have been nothing but impressive this season. And we'll see what that matchup looks like on Christmas Eve, right? Number 2, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. They did drop for me 1. Obviously, they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. Not a bad loss, nothing like that. It's just another loss tallied up for the Chiefs where I cannot put the Eagles behind them.
Well, you can kind of separate them a bit now,
You can separate them a good bit with 2 losses in between them. So I moved the Philadelphia Eagles up to number 1, as you could guess there. They were able to beat the Tennessee Titans 35-10. It's an impressive win, to say the least. People can try to diminish it. There's just no way around that. Got the New York Giants coming up. That's going to be a fun one. Another chance for us to prove ourselves even further. They've won 3 in a row since that terrible loss to Washington. So we're picking up right where we left off in that game. And I obviously love where this Eagles team is going. They're the best overall team in football. Jalen Hurts is the MVP. This is pretty easy for me at this point, right? I don't have to lie to myself anymore or try to hide behind like not trying to be biased. No, it can all be factually, statistically proven.
I'm sorry, not to get off script here, but it's just funny. You brought up the point of trying to diminish the win and how people will react, but all of a sudden the Cowboys beating the Colts in the fourth quarter became this big story, right? But no one will talk about the fact that like the Eagles beat Green Bay, but the Cowboys lost, like whatever. But the funny thing is, I don't know if you saw how with Shady McCoy being on that one show on FS1. Now, I'm not going to lie. Shady has his flaws in his analysis from time to time, and he's not great at it sometimes, and he is a little homerish sometimes.
Yeah.
As everyone can be, but it's amazing. They clipped this week him. They had a segment on has Dallas bridged the gap between them and Philly, and he said hell no, and he went on and talked about it, and they clipped it. Well, Cowboys Twitter is going off in the comments and quote tweets and saying, look how biased he is. How is worst analyst on television, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, don't you guys like watch Skip Bayless and Michael Irvin? Like, don't you guys listen to these guys? But like, it's just so funny to me how they can't take one comment, but whatever. Anyway, number 5, this one was difficult for me. 4 and 5, I think, are very interchangeable, and I understand why you have them 4. At number 5, I have the Buffalo Bills. This is where things get tricky because the Bills have the range to be the best team in football. I know they're coming off of a win last week, and then obviously on Thanksgiving they squeaked by the Lions. But I think that I still need to see a little bit more progression from Josh Allen and this offense. When did they play last week? Oh, it was Thursday Night Football, right?
Thursday night, yeah.
And we were going back and forth. He had that fumble. He can be very careless with the ball. So until I see those little details get cleaned up, I'm not going to be confident in them being a top 3 team right now. But I have them at 5. Why, Scotty? Paying homage to you, my man. Number 4, Joe Breezy, Joe Burr, right? The Bengals, they are a solid. You want to talk about flipping a switch? They started off the season 0-2. And then they started a win, a loss, right? All of a sudden, this defense looks like a top 5-6 unit. They lose Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine comes in, busts back-to-back 100-yard games, it feels like. Yeah. They were winning without Jamar Chase. He comes back. T. Higgins. Joe Burrow's in top 3 of MVP candidacy right now. So all of a sudden, this team that was fringe like 7 to 10 range is now top 4 for me. And that win against the Chiefs the week prior against the Titans on the road, those are 2 very hard fought, very good wins. And you're lying to yourself if you don't view the Titans in the same breath, or the Bengals in the same breath as the Bills and the Chiefs. At number 3, I have the same top 3 as you. I have the Dallas Cowboys at 3. I have the Chiefs at 2. I have the Eagles at 1. Here are the explanations. I understand how tough Dallas is going to be. I know they're a damn good football team, but they do have, as all teams do, they do have flaws. Dak Prescott, turnovers have been a flaw. Kellen Moore getting in his own way in terms of play calling has been a flaw. We've seen their run defense get gashed. They cleaned it up a bit, but it has been a flaw. Nonetheless, they are still probably the second best team in the NFC. I think I would put them ahead of the Vikings, right, Scotty? Even though they could be a wild card. I would put them ahead of them. San Fran without Garoppolo, I could put them ahead of them. Cowboys at 3, Chiefs at 2. Maybe they're my Achilles heel. Maybe I give them too much of a pass. They've now lost 3 games. I don't know, but I just, like we talked about before the Cincy game, you predicted it. I could see it as a loss, even though I didn't predict it. It's Mahomes. It's Andy. I just think they'll be fine. Like it's just a scheduled loss, as Doc Rivers would say. They're going to lose somewhere along the line. At number 1, you have the best team in football. You're right. Analytically, statistically, eye test, roster, quarterback play, secondary play. They're getting healthier. Avonte Maddox, Jordan Davis back last week. Avonte Maddox can play this week. This Eagles team is number 1. If they are not number 1 for you, Stephen A. Smith, who decided to put them at 4 or 5 on his list earlier in the week or last week.
He doesn't watch sports. Like he doesn't know who Trey Turner is. How are you on like a national sports broadcast and you don't know who one of the best?
I brought this up earlier. Not to get off script, but I brought this up earlier to Phil on the show because you commented that, right?
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if the network or his show never talked baseball and MLB. Like never did it, right? And they don't follow it. He doesn't need to follow it. Right. But the same day that you talk about Trey Turner, there's 9 segments about Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees. So you talk about the sport. You're supposed to know about the sport, but you don't know who the best shortstop in the game is who just signed for $300 million on a team that just made the World Series. Like that's the part I'm talking about. If they never talked about the Yankees and Aaron Judge, all right, well, he just doesn't watch baseball. They don't talk about
stick to himself, right?
But like that it is funny to me, man. And again, I think you and I on this show have talked about it enough. Sometimes it can be therapeutic to just like know that we're not crazy, right? Like earlier in the year, we're trying to buy into this Eagles team, but are we crazy? Like, is it too early? And then trust what your eyes tell you, essentially. And your eyes should tell you, if you have good vision, that the Eagles are the best team in the National Football League at the moment.
Yeah, man. I honestly, man, like, especially, it's what bothers me is like when it's not a Cowboys fan that's saying these things, like when it's somebody completely out of the rivalry, there's no reason for bias. So, like, what are you watching that you don't think this is the best team in football? Like, what can't the Eagles do? There was a guy on Get Up this morning, man, and they're sitting there talking about their ESPN's index percentage of analytics versus schedule strength and percentages of who's going to come out of the NFC. Somehow the Dallas Cowboys with 3 losses don't even have the 1 seed, don't even lead their division, have a higher percentage chance than the Eagles or the Vikings.
50% chance, Scotty. I'll read you one thing before we move on.
It's insane to me, man.
You know, we weren't scheduled to get into an Eagles topic here, but the one thing that people still talk about, because the Hurts doubters, which I don't know if we would classify as doubters, but I mean, we weren't Hurts haters, but maybe we were Hurts doubters. We had questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm quiet. I'm not just quiet. I'm screaming from the rooftops the opposite direction.
I'm done.
If there's any haters or doubters out there, they're not watching the quarterback position. If you're a hater of Gannon, well, I already read you all of the numbers defensively, right? The only argument people still have is, well, they don't play anybody, Scotty. Did you guys know that the Cowboys play basically the same schedule the Eagles do? Also, Scotty, did you know that the Eagles are the only undefeated team versus current playoff teams this season?
Yep, 4-0.
3-0. 3-0.
Oh, that's against winning teams. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Winning teams, 4-0. But yeah, nonetheless.
Wins over the Vikings, Titans, and Cowboys. Each of them have been by more than 1 score per Jeff Kerr, plus 50, scoring margin. But because they don't play the Chiefs or the Bills once a year, apparently they don't play anybody, Scotty.
It is insane, man. It is insane. I just don't understand where it comes from. I guess it is just to, rile up Philly fans. Maybe that's what it is. Get us talking about it. Get us talking about their show. Maybe that's really what it is. Because Philadelphia, they look at that. If you're a Philadelphia fan watching that, if you're somebody that analyzes Philadelphia sports heavily and you watch all the games, you have to look at these guys on TV when they're talking. And this is probably from any market outside of like the Lakers, the LA Lakers and the Dallas Cowboys, right? Anybody outside of that market, you're probably watching these shows and just like, what the hell are they talking about? They call people out of names. They call, misinformation as far as stats. Like it's actually crazy. Like it's one thing.
Or you could have someone in our own market like Seth Joyner.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
when's the last time we had an interception?
He's a hot take
ago, we had 2 of them. We need more sacks. They're second in the league in sacks. What, dude? Come on, bro. Even you have to understand how asinine you sound.
Yeah,
and like he's on that panel with Mikey Miss and with Devin Caney and I'm drawing a blank. Derek Gunn, D-Gun. And that, like, I know they don't say anything out loud, but I just watch Mikey Miss sometimes when he speaks, and he won't say nothing, but he's just like, like, bro, what are we doing? I understand, again, I understand that Gannon has flaws. I understand on 3rd and 4 when they sit back in his zone 8 yards off the line of scrimmage and they pick up a first down, it's hard to watch. No, duh. We would like him to fix those things. But when you want to scream your head off and your eyeballs are popping out about interceptions and sacks, and they're literally 1st and 2nd in those 2 categories through 13 weeks, what are we doing? Yeah. While they're 11-1, what are we doing?
Just like my thing is, don't just say, tell me why. Like, why? Why are the Cowboys better than the Eagles? What are they better than the Eagles at? What is the Eagles' weakness at this point? Like we've just like knocked down all the doors of proving ourselves. Just got to continue to do it, right? Not get too big headed. I'm not too worried about them doing that. But when they walk into
MetLife this week and beat them 30-13, what else? That's another playoff team. That's a divisional rival on the road. What's going to be next? Daniel Jones ran for too many yards. Like, I don't know what I'll end up hearing after that. But anyway, Scotty, we'll get into that this Sunday on Turf Talk as well as DSM Pregame Live to break that game down at noon. There is a game tonight kicking off the Week 14 slate in LA. Raiders, Rams. And I think you have a very interesting topic you want to bring up.
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring this to your attention and just talk to you about the Raiders here. Now, obviously, this is a big game for them, I would say. And I think it's a big game in a sense of national media and in the entire world. Now, obviously, not everybody tunes into Thursday Night Football, but people that watch football when it's on the television. So you come into this game, I think this is a big opportunity for the Raiders to kind of stomp on the Rams. Like, this is absolutely a game that the Raiders should win tonight, right? Like, we have no idea who's starting a quarterback for the Rams tonight. Could be John Wolford or Baker Mayfield straight off the street, right? So we have no idea who's starting there. They've had trouble blocking for their quarterback. The Raiders have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. So it's all slated for the Raiders to kind of take this step, win their 4th straight game in a row, right? You look at the playoff situation, and you would think after the Raiders start, like, there's just no way, right? We looked at this a couple weeks ago, and I think we both agreed, no shot the Raiders can get into the playoffs, right? So you look at it right now, the Raiders are 5-7, similar to the Browns. The Browns and the Raiders are in a similar boat right now. If they can kind of play their cards right the rest of the season, they can give themselves a shot. I would lean more towards the Raiders and me believing in them versus the Browns, just based on Deshaun Watson, not playing in over 2 years, but also the Raiders. The talent has been there, right? Like, the talent has been there on paper. We've just been waiting for it to show through. Then you look at what's ahead of them. You obviously got the Jets. They're going to take on the Bills this weekend. I would expect the Bills to win that game. They're going to drop to 7-6 at that point. You got the New England Patriots. That's kind of the team. Their schedule's not the hardest down the stretch. If they can win the right
they're
games,
also probably the least talented team of the groups fighting.
They are. That is very true. And then you have the Chargers who take on the Dolphins this weekend. So if the Chargers lose that game, they're 6-6 right now. Raiders win this game tonight, they will leapfrog the Chargers in the race. So now you're just sitting behind the Patriots and the New York Jets. Who knows what can happen down the stretch there? You don't know what these two offenses in front of you, right? That's quite honestly what it is.
Right.
You look
With
at the Jets,
5 games left?
Defense is solid. The Patriots' defense is solid. But what are these quarterbacks in these offenses going to be made of down the stretch? And would you take Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, and Devontae Adams over them down the stretch? You'd have to look into each and every schedule. But you look at the schedule the rest of the way for the Raiders, their last 2 games are going to be the toughest ones left. They got the Rams tonight, obviously. That would make 4 in a row. They got the Patriots next week. Another huge opportunity.
There you go.
Right? I didn't even realize that until I just looked at it.
Is it at home or in Foxborough?
It is in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So that can turn the table in the Raiders' favor right there. Then after that, you go to Pittsburgh. We know the situation in Pittsburgh, and you're talking about a Raiders team. If they win against the Rams tonight, win against the Patriots, that's 5 in a row.
Yeah.
That's talking about building momentum.
For sure.
And then they finish the season. This is where it gets tricky, right? What are the 49ers at that point in the season? Second to last week of the season. Are the 49ers in place? You know, what's going on with their quarterback situation? That's going to be a big question there. It is in Las Vegas, though. It's a home game. They end the season against Kansas City in Las Vegas.
Don't do it to him,
Pat. I know. And it would be so it would be so sad for them
already
to get
wrapped up.
point.
Maybe KC's already got their
That's
division
their best
wrapped up.
bet.
However, even if they do, they could be fighting for the 1 seed.
I know.
So,
It's their best bet.
I knew you were going to
losing
say that.
game. They would be 9-8 to end the season. If they win the other ones, they would be 9-8. So there's a chance there, and I just didn't really see it. You know, maybe.
No, dude, me neither. I mean, at one point when the Raiders and the Broncos matched up a couple weeks ago, I think it was the 2-7 Broncos versus the 3-7 Raiders or something. Like this was just an ugly matchup. And now you talk about one team accelerating to, wow, we're a game and a half out of a playoff spot with 5 to go. Like that's, and we play one of the teams in next week. So, you know, you have your opportunities there. But Scotty, the point being, it starts with tonight. What's in front of you? How can you get to 6 and 7? You are on the road. But there is no surprise to me that like Samuel's saying, the Raiders are favored by 6.
Yeah.
It feels wrong to lay 6 on the Raiders side. Just because of the mess they've been for the year, but you're talking no Stafford. I think they said Walford was starting.
Yeah.
You talking no Cooper Kupp, no Allen Robinson, no Aaron Donald tonight. Offensive line issues. The Cam Akers story is the most outlandish story I've ever seen.
That makes sense.
He was sitting. He wanted a trade. He wasn't being dressed. They were going to trade him or release him. They don't do either. And now at the end of the year, when they stink, he's getting all the carries again.
Make sense, man.
But they're extremely banged up. And now while we understand that, I believe Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, right, are both still
on injury reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they still are out. So Matt Collins is their second leader in receiving yards on this season. Matt Collins, believe it or not, he's up over 500 receiving yards this season. He's definitely been their wide receiver too. That's crazy in itself. But I think the key tonight for the Raiders, man, obviously you're going to have like the marquee matchups on offense for them. You're going to have Devontae Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. Who knows how that matchup goes, man? Jalen Ramsey hasn't been the greatest this season amongst that defense. So we'll see if they go head-to-head. Devontae Adams leads the league in targets this year, 135. That's first in the NFL. So you know they're going to go his way regardless of who's in front of him. But I think it's the pass rush on the other side. They should be able to wreak havoc tonight on the Rams and that offensive line, the backup quarterback, whether that's Baker or John Wolford, and whoever's playing receiver for the Rams as well. I mean, they're dismantled. They're beat up, man. And this is exactly why the Raiders can't come out and lay an egg tonight. They can't do that. Even if they aren't going to make the playoffs at the end of the season, give your fans some hope down the stretch and win these games that you should win. They should go and beat the Patriots at home next week, right? Yes. They should be able to do that. They're talented enough. Give your fans some hope down the stretch. That's kind of all I'm asking for the Raiders in reality.
I agree, man. And maybe it was just a rough start, but it's man, I'll tell you what, this season has just been a crazy ride. From some teams we thought were going to be back in championship contention stink. Teams we thought were going to stink are in playoff contention. You've had, between Dan Campbell and Josh McDaniel, which one's going to be fired first? Both of their teams are on winning streaks. Do you know if the Lions win this week, they potentially have a very good chance to get the 7th wildcard spot?
They could, man. Yeah.
That's absurd, dude. Hence the reason I just picked up Jared Goff for my week 14 week 14 fantasy matchup.
Playing for something.
Being injured, but
they're getting healthier, right? They're adding Jameson Williams to the mix. Yeah. DeAndre Swift is getting fully healthy now. He's starting to see a little bit of an uptick in usage. So just have both of those.
Just a little bit. The most asinine thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, man. If they use him down the stretch, they could be very dangerous.
Jamal Williams is good, dude. He's no scrub.
He's solid.
But
it's just that, though. He's solid.
But he's like, they have it reversed. Like, Jamal Williams is somehow the bell cow, and Swift spells him.
I don't even mind the goal line touches for Jamal because he might be better in that situation. Right. He is a power back, right? But DeAndre Swift in open field, you got to give yourself
first and 10 from your own 35. DeAndre Swift should be in the game.
Exactly.
Whatever, man. Not my problem. He burned us week 1, and luckily he still
never got used to
win. With that being said, Scotty, who do you got tonight? Why? And then also if you have any plays or best bets.
Yeah, so I got the Raiders tonight. Obviously, they're the better team at this point. The Rams are on the downhill slide. They're in the midst of a 6-game losing streak. I can't believe it. But I will say, I think the Raiders will not be able to lean on that running game as much tonight as they've been able to the last few weeks. The Rams do have the number 5 run defense in the NFL. So I think this will be more of a Derek Carr game. And that's kind of what I mean, man. Derek Carr, it's not like his fault, the situation they're in. I'm not trying to say that. It's just one of those things where Derek Carr, you can't come out and throw 2 or 3 interceptions tonight against the Rams. You can't do that. You need to come out, have a clean game, make the right decisions, get the ball in your playmakers' hands. And I think the Raiders should be able to take care of this. I don't think the Rams should be able to score very many points tonight. I think that pass rush is going to be able to get to the Rams all night. Just the way their offensive line has been suffering all season. It's why Matthew Stafford's so beat up, right? Because he's just getting hit so much. So I think the Raiders should be able to dominate this game. I would pick them to win the spread. If they don't, it's a disappointment, man. This shouldn't come down to like a last possession play for John Wolford on the, getting into the Raiders territory. No. It shouldn't be that. This should be a game you take care of, kind of make a statement on national television. Hey, we're here. We're going to give ourselves a shot.
Just like the Sixers shouldn't have needed 39 points to lose to the Houston Rockets, but
toxic, man. Make you throw up on air. Anyway. Sixers.
I agree with you. I had the Raiders tonight. The line's 6.5. I know I'm going to take this back, but my best bet is to lay the 6.5 tonight.
I like it.
Just because of iffy props, I ain't taking nobody on the Rams side as a best bet. And on the Raiders side, you bring up the run stopping defense for the Rams, although Aaron Donald probably takes away from that a bit tonight. Fair. But then you had the matchup with Ramsey and Adams. What are they going to look to do there? But Ramsey has struggled this year from time to time. So it'll be interesting. I loved your point though. It comes down to Derek Carr in a game like this where you're just way more talented than them. And you don't want to give a depleted Rams team at home any sense of life, any sense of belief that they can win this ball game against you.
Absolutely.
So Derek Carr not giving them a short field, not fumbling and throwing 2 picks are big spots tonight for this game. But either Raiders spread.
And another point I almost forgot. They're in, they're playing in LA technically, but it's closer to Oakland. That's Raiders territory, man.
Yeah,
There's going to be a ton of Raiders fans there tonight as well. They show up.
Not to mention, if you're the Rams and you're looking at 3 wins and you're coming off a Super Bowl, normally you'd be like, oh, all right, well, first round pick to kind of restock. They don't have their first round pick for a while. They're in trouble. They are the definition of a team that sold their soul for a title. They got it. Credit to them. They got it last year. And ultimately, that's the goal. But there's no future right now.
Let me ask you, and your answer there may have already answered it, but is there any type of redemption story for Baker Mayfield on this team?
Oh, no.
No, he's done. He's cooked.
No, and heading into the year that I was more on the supporting side of Baker than the hater side of Baker.
Yeah.
From what I've seen in just limited work, there should have been no way, especially with Sam Darnold getting injured in Carolina, that there was ever a controversy or fight for this game. Scott, he got beat out by PJ Walker at times. Once Darnold came back, he took it. Baker got to come back in one game and then gave it right back. What he's been able to control has been ugly. And my man, you had Christian McCaffrey, you had DJ Moore, you weren't totally depleted weapon-wise. That team has more weapons than this Rams offense currently has tonight. So to me, no, I don't think Baker has any chance to redeem himself. And honestly, Scotty, his career as a starter's gotta be over, right?
I saw some people talking about, oh my God, you're going to hate me for even bringing this up. I saw some people talking about, Minshew's going to move on after the offseason, bring Baker in as a backup quarterback to Jalen Hurts.
Why?
I'm good on that. I don't need any big personalities as a backup quarterback on this team, man. No. I'm good on it.
Can I ask you one question before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Just on a report. We were talking Eagles earlier. And all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so likely that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be signing Odell Beckham Jr. And I know we have a plethora of weapons, but there was a report that the Eagles are the quiet team to keep your eye on in the OBJ sweepstakes. What is Scotty doing?
Hey, look, I don't know. It's a tough one for me, man, because you look at this Eagles team, right? They're made to win this season, and if OBJ was down to play right now, especially with these rumors of the Quez injury, he hurt his shoulder in that game, I would consider it, depending on the Howie knows best. I would trust Howie with that. But, bro, if he could go right now, I'm definitely doing it. I'm definitely bringing OBJ if he can play right now. Similar rumors about him to the Rams last season. There was the same things about the injury concerns, and they're going to be there. He's a guy that's torn his knee up how many times now?
Right.
But I would imagine it would be low risk. He's just looking for a little bit of multi-year security, it sounds like. And the main thing I was going to get to there, to your question, is that the Eagles are ready to win this season. They're ready to win the next few seasons as well. So down the road, it's not the worst having OBJ in your back pocket.
What player is he to date? Who is he today, man?
Right.
I don't have the answer, and apparently no one's really been able to watch him work out.
Right.
That's kind of the issue in Dallas right now. Also, I never heard anything come of why he was semi-unconscious and kicked off of an airplane last week. Was he drunk? Was he hot? What was going on? He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't taking a nap because they couldn't get him up. So what was that situation? What is taking so long? You had Green Bay, you had Dallas, you had the Giants rumored. Why is he still not signed anywhere? How healthy is he?
Yeah.
But he's not. My prediction is he's not even what he was in LA last year, because he was on his way to possibly be the Super Bowl MVP. Yeah. That's how much of a help he was.
Yeah.
But can he come in as a threat, as a 3 catch per game kind of guy, maybe with the upside of 4 or 5, depending? Because if he's anything like that playmaker over the middle of the field with AJ and Devontae, and when Goddard comes back, Yes, of course, I would love to have him.
Yeah.
What kind of player is he coming off the injury at this age? And what is he really in the locker room? I don't know all too much about him as a person in the locker room outside of the on the field stuff we've seen prior with him.
Yeah.
But last year he seemed like all he wanted to do in LA was win.
Yeah.
And he did that. And he was a great teammate in LA. So if that's who he is, you're damn right I'll take him.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. There are points where people are like, man, 11-1. If he's a headache at all, I don't want him in this locker room. And but maybe he's not that.
I think that's fair. And I think I would also go to the leaders of this team. You know, if I'm Howie Roseman, I would get my read on it. And I trust Howie at this point. Let's be honest.
Sirianni's response was weird.
Sirianni's response was weird, but because
he basically like shut it down.
I think he does that to build up his guys, and he doesn't want to talk about anybody out of house until they're in house, and I respect that. I think this locker room has strong personalities to where he would fit right in. I think that he would, if he got out of line, he wouldn't last long on this team, right?
I agree. Yeah, no, I like
wouldn't let him in the locker room.
I like the thought process. I agree with you. I guess I just meant not even just so much the locker room, the timing. I don't need a personality coming in week 16 when I'm got my eyes on a Super Bowl run. And to me, the biggest thing, personality aside, I can deal with a headache if he's productive. I don't want a non-productive headache.
Yeah, that's
how's that knee? What's the production like on field? I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either.
I honestly, Scotty, won't be surprised if he doesn't sign anywhere. You're getting to a point in the season where, it would be cool to have a fresh OBJ. With all the unknown about him, what team is going to take him in week 16?
If you can't help us right now, you know what I mean? If you can't help us right now, I just don't know if teams are looking to take up.
I'll see you in the off season.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with you. I don't think that it would happen. I would, basically what I'm saying, I would consider it for sure. I would definitely look into it, inquire, because I would be interested. But we would have to see. There's a lot of question marks there for sure. And the simple truth, we don't need him. And I think that's a good place to put it for the Eagles. We don't need them. We don't need him. So it's not a place of urgency, I feel, as far as getting something done there. And it could just be a tactic to get him, keep him away from Dallas at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't necessarily disagree with this either. Because I think he is going to want, you mentioned years and stability. There is going to come a price tag with that, Scotty. And I think that the two sides might not be able to come to an agreement. I don't think you're getting a 1 or 2 year, very cheap, team friendly type of contract for him. I think you're getting not a high risk, but semi risk, and we'll see. I just think
the Rams got that because he was healthy enough to play. He was able to go out there.
Not to mention he was traded.
To
the Rams. He was playing, was unhappy, and was traded. People do forget about that.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same situation.
The Browns just took most of that contract from him. Basically, they allowed him to play for nothing. Basically,
exactly.
So they were able to take that on. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's interesting, right? I don't know. He went into this offseason obviously hoping to get a contract and never formulated. And I don't know. I'm kind of leaning no at this point after we talked through.
I lean. But you have to do your homework, and I have to see what the production would look like. And all that.
A lot of question marks, man.
With that being said, guys, that is going to wrap up this Week 14 Thursday edition of Turf Talk here on DSM Media. We're live every Monday and Thursday night, as well as Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Don't forget to come hang out with us this Sunday at 11 a.m. to get you ready for this packed Week 14 slate. You can find all of our great shows and content over at DSM_media on Twitter. Don't forget to check out the link tree in our bio. Check us out on TikTok. Scotty does a great job over there. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube specifically. We're trying to get to 700 subscribers. We greatly appreciate if you guys could hit that subscribe button. It's free. There's content every day, YouTube shorts. We do giveaways, prizes. So it's a pretty fun community over here. So feel free to hit that sub button. And for myself, for Scotty, for DSM, and our friends over at Luxon and Jewelers and Gents Barber Lounge, have a great rest of your night.